Hey everybody, so right now in April 2019, if you want to get a premium Android flagship, you have a lot of options, most of which are Chinese brands. But as recently as like 2 or 3 years ago, if you want a premium flagship phone that is not an iPhone, you really only have two options, which is either a Samsung or an LG. So right now I'm currently testing the LG G8, and I figured I might as well do a comparison between the LG G8 and the Samsung Galaxy S10, because these are the two old school Korean rivals. And again, before the rise of Huawei and Xiaomi and OnePlus, these were the two brands you considered if you did not want to go with iOS. So first things first, I hate to be superficial, but I have to talk about this first because I feel like it's like the thing that you notice the most. So in my opinion, the Samsung Galaxy S10 looks better than the LG G8, at least from the front, because you have a hole punch design that not only takes up a lot less space than the relatively large notch on the G8, but the hole punch design is just newer and it feels more fresh. You look at the notch and it looks like something that came out like 2018, like early 2018. And on top of that, the bezels around the display of the Galaxy S10 are noticeably significantly thinner than the bezels around the LG G8 screen. And then finally, the Galaxy S10 has a curved screen that I just think, in my opinion, looks a little bit more visually appealing. I like it when I'm scrolling through websites or swiping through images. I like that illusion of images spilling off the edge of the screen. It's like an infinity pool. Whereas, the LG G8 has a relatively flat panel and looks nice, but it doesn't catch my eyes as much. Now moving on to the displays, I know that every reviewer just automatically gives Samsung OLEDs the championship belt. Everybody just says, oh, the Galaxy S10 is the best screen ever. That's all. And while that may be true, I actually think it's really, really close. I mean, if you put the two phones side by side, it'd be really, really hard to tell a difference between the two. In fact, if you put the Galaxy S10 screen next to the Huawei P30 Pro screen, they look the same to me too. And the P30 Pro only has a 1080p resolution, whereas the Galaxy S10 screen has a 3K resolution. So I think the Galaxy S10 screen is really, really nice, but it's slightly overrated because people just say, oh, it's the best, as if nothing else comes close. When in reality, they're actually very close. I mean, you put the G8 side by side with the S10 outdoors, I'm not even sure the S10 screen is brighter. They look really the same to me. But looks is one thing, usability is another. So as much as I like the look of curved screens, I have to admit, they actually don't serve any practical purpose. They're like style over substance. They don't actually offer any real world benefits. I mean, it's nice to look at, but that's about it. When you use a curved screen phone, no matter how good the palm rejection software is, it will be more prone to accidental touches than a flat panel. Now, kudos to Samsung because it did a relatively good job at rejecting palm touches. So if I'm using a phone upright, it's fine. But when I find that if I'm reclined in a seat like this, or if I'm lying flat on my back, situations when I have to grip the phone a little tighter, then I find that the meaty part of my palm actually touches the corner of the screen quite often, and then it results in lack of response on the screen because it's like registering false touches. Now with the LG G8, the panel is relatively flat, and plus the bezels are relatively thick, so I don't have such a problem. So the LG G8 screen isn't as sexy to look at as the Galaxy S10, but it's more practical. I can use this phone with one hand in more situations without accidental palm touches. And just in general, I find the G8 easier to use than the Galaxy S10. It's all the little things. So the Galaxy S10 has an in-display fingerprint reader, and a lot of US reviewers have complained about this, saying it's not reliable. I actually think the hardware underneath the screen is fine, but it's the software that's freaking annoying. So Samsung, for some reason, does not light up the sensor area at all times. So when your phone is completely asleep, like right now, the sensor area, you can't tell where it is. You just have to guess. So what you can do is you can tap on the screen once and then wait for the sensor area to light up, but you see it takes like half a second. So a lot of times I'll try to unlock the phone when it's flat on the desk, and I have to guess where to put my finger. And even though after you use the phone long enough, you'll be able to find it like 90-95% of the time, but that still leaves a 5% to 10% of the time when you don't press the right area and the phone will not unlock. Now the LG G8 just beats that because it goes with a conventional hardware fingerprint reader. Again, it's not as futuristic tech, but it works very well. Anytime you're holding the phone, you can reach the back fingerprint sensor easily and accurately. I would say that overall success rate unlocking the G8, it's like maybe 98-99%. Whereas unlocking the S10, it's like 92-95%. Those 3 to 5 percentage points makes a big difference. And likewise, if you want to use face unlock, the Galaxy S10 has only a flat 2D face unlock because it has a single selfie camera. On the LG G8, you have a TOF sensor here that can do a real 3D face unlock, so it's a lot more secure. Like that dude on The Verge proved already, you can trick the Galaxy S10 into unlocking with a video of your face playing off another phone. And that's not all in terms of usability and ergonomics. The Galaxy S10's power button, it's stupidly high up on the phone. Now I'm using the smaller S10, so it's still somewhat manageable, but when you use the S10 Plus, it's just annoyingly high up. So I hold my phone with the left hand, and there's no way for me to hit the power button without needing to adjust my grip like this. And even if you hold the phone with your right hand, your thumb doesn't quite reach the power button. The power button's just too damn high. On the LG G8, the power button, it's a little bit lower. It's easier to reach with my left hand or with my right hand. So it's just like little things that make sense. And on top of that, you have the extra hardware button on the left side of both devices. On the Galaxy S10, it launches Bixby. On the LG G8, it launches the Google Assistant. I mean, no contest. So the LG G8 is definitely like superior in terms of ergonomics and usability. So in terms of power and performance, they both run on Snapdragon 855, but the Samsung Galaxy S10 has more RAM. It comes with 8 gigs of RAM across all models, whereas LG G8, at least my unit, only has 6 gigs of RAM. Now I haven't seen any performance issues with the G8, but ultimately, if you can get more RAM, you gotta take more RAM. So I think the Galaxy S10 wins this round. But to be honest, day-to-day performance so far has been virtually exactly the same. Now in terms of software, in years past I would give the edge to LG because I'm a big fan of features like double tap to lock the phone, double tap to wake the screen, and knock code to unlock your phone. These are things that just make the phone very useful for me. And I also like the little shortcut button to bring down notification shade. But Samsung has overhauled its software this year with the S10, so now this is called One UI, and it does look a little bit better than LG's software. I think in terms of aesthetics, Samsung's One UI is closer to stock Android, whereas LG still looks a little bit kind of garish in parts. So this year I have to give the edge to the Samsung Galaxy S10 software. Now moving on to the cameras, my unit of the LG G8 is a US unit, and for some reason it only has 2 cameras. The South Korean version has a triple camera array. So in terms of just flat out comparison, the US unit of the G8, it's kind of like an uphill battle because it's missing that telephoto lens. So I'm not going to compare telephoto lens because obviously the S10 is going to win. But if you compare the main camera and the wide angle lens, they're quite comparable. They're very, very similar in performance. I think in general, as you can see from footage here, the Galaxy S10's colors are more bold, more vibrant. That's because Samsung has dialed up the contrast. But you can argue that the LG's footage and colors are more accurate. I do think Samsung's pictures do look a little bit more pleasing to the eye, especially when you're shooting food. Like look at this plate of eggs. It looks a lot more appetizing on the S10 than on the LG G8. But the LG G8's f1.5 aperture is actually really good at pulling light. So you see right here, I'm shooting this scene. You look on the left side of the frame, I think the G8's photo is a little bit better balanced and better lit than the Galaxy S10. The S10's a little bit drenched in shadows. But now when you move to true low light scenarios, then I think the Galaxy S10 wins a little bit, but it's kind of cheating because the Galaxy S10 slows down shutter speed to a halt whenever you're shooting low light photos. Even when you're using auto mode, it's so slow in fact that the Galaxy S10 is very prone to blurry photos whenever you're taking something in low light situations because the shutter speed is so slow. Now in terms of bokeh images with the main camera, I think the Galaxy S10's image are a little bit more natural. The edge detection is slightly superior, and you have more features too, such as like choosing the background blur, all of that. But when it comes to bokeh depth of field images with the selfie camera, the LG G8 wins. Edge detection is a little bit better, but also my face just comes out a lot more natural on the LG G8. because of the TOF camera, I get the sense that it's actually mapping my face. So you see that there's like shadows under where my eyes are and like, you know, like contours of my face. Now in terms of the wide angle camera, the Galaxy S10 has a wider field of vision, which can make image and videos look a little bit more dynamic, but at the same time it's more distorted. So I think I will have to go with the LG G8 wide angle cam, but really they're really close. Now same with videos. Again, videos are very close. I think the Galaxy S10 is a little bit better at quickly finding balance as I shift between shaded and lighted areas. And again, the Galaxy S10's video looks a little bit punchier, but I think the LG G8 has better stabilization, especially when I'm walking. You see how the Galaxy S10 has a little bit more micro jitteriness. Now in terms of additional features, the LG G8 has that TOF camera, so it allows you to unlock the phone with your palm and also launch apps with your palm gestures, like LG calls it air motion. The Galaxy S10 doesn't really offer anything in particular, it's quite normal. But to be honest, I think a lot of people will say the palm stuff is gimmicky and they're not going to use it. So I have to call it a tie, even though the LG G8 offers something more. But personally, I respect LG for just offering you more ways to unlock the phone and just more ways to do things. Now in terms of battery life, the G8 has a bigger battery at 3500 mAh compared to the 3400 mAh on the S10. But to be honest, in real life day-to-day, battery life, it's just about the same. That extra 100 mAh doesn't really make a difference. So both of these phones can last me all day if I use it kind of cautiously. If I really push the phones heavily during the day on a heavy use day, neither of these phones will last me an entire day. The battery life, it's, you know, it's good. It's not bad. Now finally, which phone would I recommend? It's tough because I think the S10 looks a lot better from the front. Like I just can't get over the superficial part. I think this looks a lot better than this. But the LG G8 is quite a lot cheaper. It's like 100 US to 150 US cheaper, and that's quite a lot of money to a lot of people. So if you care about value at all, I think the LG G8 is the better buy. But if money is no issue, then you might consider the S10. Really, it's tough to call. It's personal preference. This phone looks a little bit better. It's flashier, but this one's easier to use and it's more practical and it's more ergonomic. Yeah, so this is it with the showdown between the two South Korean brands. Thanks for watching.